Hi, Gerhard Bloom, once again looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. So, some quick thoughts on multiculturalism. I mean, you could skip this and just walk away with, no, it's stupid, it's poisonous, pointy-headed leftist nonsense, but let's go through this for, perhaps the deluded leftists who might consider reflecting on this for a minute. These seemingly virtuous ideas that always end disastrously wrong. Seen this playing out in France, right? The terrorist attacks, the rioting and looting across Western Europe, this rape crisis, the chaos in Britain, awful. Nations can't just welcome anybody. The people who are welcomed in cannot have values, beliefs, practices, and moral commitments that are antithetical to the nation's majority. This is a dangerous, dangerous mistake, as I say, playing out in Western Europe. And this isn't to say racists aren't welcome. It isn't to say that foreigners aren't welcome. Both in Canada and the United States, yes, lots of immigrants, nations of immigrants. My mother's parents, both immigrants to Canada. My father, first generation immigrant. And few things would anger him as much as some immigrant who became a Canadian citizen would continue to refer to in my country or back home. And my father would invariably respond by saying, I thought Canada was your country. Isn't Canada your home? Immigrants, when adopting another nation as their country, should be under no misapprehension as to which basic orienting values and practices should guide their lives. Yep. Cook the kind of food you want, no cloth bag on a street corner, that should be illegal. But you want to dress modestly? Dress modestly. In fact, I think a good many Western young women should dress a little bit more modestly. Yeah, that's me. And it might be a difficult adjustment, but it's adjustment they need to make. Those seeking admission into our countries should be under no misapprehension as to which culture they need to orient themselves towards. And no nation should be called upon to adapt its visions and its practices to welcoming these strangers. Sharia law, blasphemy laws, absolutely absurd. And this is happening in Western Europe. Demands for Sharia law and Sharia courts, and no, stop it, deport them. And no one is being coerced here. You want in, the price of admission is a recognition there is a culture and a set of laws that you are bound by. Oh, you're fleeing some murderous tyranny. Well, okay, then you better behave yourself. Otherwise, as I said in this on those riots in France, you want to riot and loot and no, off you go. And I don't care what happens to you back home. I'm fleeing some violent mob. I pound on your door, you let me in, and then I set your sofa on fire and I'm shocked that you might want to throw me out? No. Oh, pork served in the cafeteria. No, you don't have to eat it, nor do you have to eat in that cafeteria. But I'm hungry and I can't eat where pork is cooked. Well, it looks like you've got a tough decision to make. And yes, men and women at this pool, they swim together. You are under no obligation to eat there. And these aren't fanciful examples. Under pressure from Islamic advocacy group, pork is being banned from school cafeterias. And beef, oh yes, it's still being served. And the Hindus and the vegans, well, they just get along, don't they? And swimming pools under pressure have now only women's only swimming. Well, there are only so many hours in the day. So making this accommodation means everybody else, no swimming for you. Unless you put on a skirt and pretend to be a woman, and then in you go, into the women's shower room and into the women's pool. Well, there's a thought. High school names, such as high school team names, such as the Crusaders. They have been changed to accommodate sensitivities, and many of these team names have been around for generations. They embody a legacy. Your fathers and sons shared in this tradition of being on these teams. And this has, yes, emotional cost. Although teams such as the Saracens are perfectly acceptable. And these concessions send precisely the wrong message. Your job as an immigrant is not to reshape society in your image. Your job is to adapt to the customs and culture of your new home. And again, I don't care what you eat at home, as long as you're not slaughtering a lamb in your living room. Nobody says, you need to be here at all. If you choose to be here, well, this is what here looks like, right? Fleeing tyranny or war, but you still want to adhere to those practices that conflict with Canadian custom or American custom and law, well, you have a difficult decision to make. And that's the price of admission. And this should be non-negotiable. As noted previously, Western Europe is being Islamized. And that pace, if it's unchallenged, the lights of liberal democracy will go dark in Europe in a few short generations. Multiculturalism created this dangerous delusion that the barbarous cultural commitments of a vast numbers of Muslim immigrants can be easily reconciled with Western society. The moral horrors witnessed daily suggest quite the contrary. And yes, I have Muslim friends, immigrants as it happens, decent, wonderful people, and no, they're not engaging in female genital mutilation. They don't want to see women being stoned to death. They don't support honor killings, none of that. Welcome aboard. Fine people. In the West, you have the freedom to practice your religion. Yep, I get that. You have the freedom of conscience and freedom of expression. These freedoms are not unlimited. Any expression of that freedom must be consistent with the law. In the West, the law supervenes, not religion, or your cultural commitments. Multiculturalists continue to make this mistake. In the words of social scientists, they have very thin conceptions of culture. They delude themselves into thinking that all cultures at root are basically the same. People all want the same things. Only this is demonstrably false, and it is dangerous. Cultures are more than language, more than styles of dress, and more than cuisine. They include an entire constellation of beliefs, accepted social practices, and orienting values. And much of these are more central to these people's lives and identities than style of dress or cuisine. People don't commit acts of terror because they don't like Western clothing or Big Macs. Should we ban Muslims? No. I think we should welcome anyone of whatever race, religion, creed, who wishes to participate in our shared project. There are thousands of Muslims across the Islamic world that seek nothing better than to escape the tyranny that is Islam. Admission should be predicated on a commitment from the immigrant that their behavior will be governed by Canadian, American, British, Danish, German law. Engage in acts of terrorism or support such causes should result in jail and, following the completion thereof, removal of citizenship and deportation. In an ideal world, participation in a terrorist plot, by definition an act of war against a nation, would result in the death penalty as well as the stripping of citizenship. Death penalty, why would you strip them of the citizenship? The symbolic meaning of the stripping of that citizenship, a betrayal of their country. Anyways, thank you so much for your time and attention. Please do drop a thumbs up, and please check out my book, Deconstructing Social Justice. It's available on Amazon. It's not important because I wrote it. I wrote it because the issues could not be more important. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.